Quiet on set. Righto, we're back. So we've got a few people happening a lot now.
Mad.
Okay, so we're back this week, a lot going on, lots of people here, which is good, and things happening. So you'll see brake lines, you'll see fitting out of the boot, bit of stuff happening with the ute again, door handles. Hope you enjoy the show. Don't forget, if you can, subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget about the merch, so the shirts are available still and hoodies, and enjoy the show. Sometimes I sort of wonder how we ever get to the end of these cars. I mean, you see week by week, it's almost like we're going backwards sometimes, but there's a never-ending, I guess, list of things and processes you've got to go through to be able to get to a point where everything comes together at the end. And part of that is to be able to organise, you know, your subcontractors, whether that be trimmer, fill doing lines, part of the paint process, getting windscreens put in, getting plating done, all those sorts of things. So at the moment we're in that phase where we've got trimmer coming today, Phil's back to try and finish putting all the holes in for the brake lines, and then while all that's going on, we've been in the process of finalising all the mounting in the boot. So you can see there the 2 amps, so there's a 4 channel and a single channel, you know, obviously the single for the sub, and then the crossovers there are for the rear speakers, and then there'll be another set of those mounted up that little canister in there for the fuel system, and then of course the battery. So I'm just waiting on a little mount to go across the top of that, and then the rear shelf. Now we've pretty much got ourselves finalised what we're doing there, and this sub box is a ported box. So I've actually changed the porting and put this square port in it now that comes up, out and up into the rear shelf. And by doing that, we can port directly into the car. So when I put this panel in here, so this will make up the remainder of the shelf. And then obviously that'll have grills in here for the speakers, and we'll have some shape moulded into it. And to be able to cover these seat belts, the original plan was to have something like that, you know, filled in with some round edges and stuff on the external end, this one, but decided now we'll come over here and make it full width, and that way we can port that sub up and into the cabin. So, you know, might not be technically the correct thing to do, but I think it'll make a difference. And you know, the reason the rubber's sitting in there is so the trimmer can work to that. It's all about trying to have everything in place. And then you've seen that the dash has been in the car for a while. So that's back out again now, so that Phil, he's making brake lines. So you can see there where they're going to come through the firewall, go up around in behind that heater box setup, and then down, and we've got that mounted over there for the ABS. So he's got to make all his brake lines fit from there, and then we'll run the rears down under those plastics on the other side, and then the fronts will come around and out through this location and run along the rail pretty much where they do standard. And then in here they come out through there, so he's going to run a banjo fitting on here. That'll keep us nice and tight out of the way of those massive heads, and anywhere that's visible will be stainless. Inside the car we'll just run the zinc coated because they're much easier to work with. So this little nightmare he's got going on here, going to be a bit of fun. And then where this comes out here, we'll probably step that back in a bit, and comes along and be another bracket here for our flexible line to come out. So all those little things are progressing, and I'm trying to get myself to a point where all the brackets are welded on, all the holes are drilled, so that we can put it back in the rotisserie and get on and do a bit of filler and a bit of bodywork. Righto, so I need to get all these doors straightened up. So they're all pretty close, but you can see here on this edge down through here, this panel was in too far. So I put the slide hammer on it, previously and pulled it, and you can see the dent that it's left in it. So the problem is the point from there and there are the same. So the length of this panel is not long enough. It needs to come this way. So what I'm going to do, because this didn't work and put a dent in the panel, I'm going to knock that back down, and then I'm going to put the dolly on the outside, and I'm going to hammer the inside and lengthen the distance in this panel to make it curve out further. So that's the intent. So let's see how we go. Alright, so I'm just going to try and get this back down and get rid of that dent. Okay, so that's a whole lot better. So the back of these doors have all been fully welded. So previously I'd hammered these up to take the pull out of it. So when you weld it, it wants to pull the door. So I've then hammered them back up, but obviously not enough to get this to work where I want it to go. So what I'm doing now is just putting the flat dolly on the outside, and I'm going to hammer up and down this back edge to stretch that metal out so that I get the curvature that I want. So I'm using the round end at the moment. Now the reason I'm going to all this trouble is what I don't want to do is shut the door, bog past the door, and end up with the back of this edge here 5mm thick to make up for the difference in the body. So I want my body line right so that when I fill the face, I don't end up with a big fat end on the door. It's getting closer. Righto, so I've hammered that from the back. I've had to work this a bit. Once I'm hammering this, I wanted to push this out a bit. So I've had my flat hammer, this one here, just on the outside very gently with the shot bag in behind, the leather bag. So I've just had that in behind there, just working my way around to push that in a little bit. And I've stretched this now out to the point now where I've got pretty good all the way around. Obviously it's going to have a little bit of a skim in it, but unfortunately as things happen, I've welded this edge previous and I've split a little bit here now with all the hammering. So now I've got the MIG out, I'm going to actually go down and do a little weld here and then put my gap back to the 5.5mm that I set up before. So you just need enough penetration that it goes in far enough that when you sand it now it doesn't split again, but not too much heat that it ends up putting the heat back in the door, then you've got to fix the door again. So the gaps are a bit of a fiddly thing, but it's just something you've got to do. Righto, so that's pretty much a done deal. So I've still got a slight indent there, but nothing like it was. But I've now got this line all sitting out nice. So I've gone in a bit here and out there by stretching the metal. So now that I'm at that point, I can work the next one up and we're looking good. So I've had quite a lot of queries in relation to what's it cost to build a car like this. So it really needs to be answered, and the issue there is how much time is put in, by the owner or people involved in the car that aren't being paid If you look at sheer hours, from my knowledge and the cars we've built, any decent build's going to start at around 2,000 man hours. So that's when you're removing skins, all that sort of stuff. Through to, say, Cobra 400 was probably 2,500. Gold 4-door was, around that same sort of number. If you start stretching it, then you go to something like when I built the Pioneer Coupe, I know was 4,500. And then something like Tailspin, where the owners had a lot of involvement. With that, they kept a fair record of their hours. That one probably started to get towards 15,000. And then just recently, Xboss came out with a video through Street Machine and said that they had 30,000 man hours in that. So if you take that all on board, you're looking at 200 grand for labour as a minimum, all the way through to 3 million if everyone's paid to work on the car. So when you take that into consideration, add in the labour content, so then add in the parts content on top of the labour, you're then going to, depending on the driveline and all, you're going to add between another 50 and 150, maybe 200 grand on top of that. So how long's a piece of string? Between 250 and about 3.5 million, that's how long. Okay, so door handles. So we're going to run with either black or body colour. So the first thing is to get some decent ones. So I don't like the repos. So these are genuine ones, and they were all painted black. So I don't know if they're all black from factory, but once you actually get that off, they come up nice and clean. So just using a bit of poly stripper and probably an hour or two's work there, and they'll be ready to be painted with some epoxy. And then a choice of either I go with the satin black, or I might even do body colour. So I spoke about door handles, about in the stripping process we might have had a chrome one potentially, and we did. And the problem with the chrome is because it's die cast, they tend to come through from underneath and bubble up, which is just a part of that problem with die cast or pot metal. So we're not going to use that one. I'm looking to source another one, which looks like I found one. So these are way better and don't have that problem, because you can blast these, you can sand them and repaint them, but that pitting will probably come back. So we've got a good set, and I'll be looking to put some epoxy on those now and then make a decision on the colour when we get a bit closer. Righto, so I've had Darren messing around with the door catches. So we've got XC door locks and then FG door handles on the inside that are going to open. So we had a few issues that we need to sort out. So I'll just let Darren tell you about what he's been up to and the result that we ended up with.
Okay, because the FG runs a cable, it's completely different there, and we needed to modify that to take the XC rod type little clip that we'll push in there. Just some little modifications. The thickness was a little bit wrong for the plastic clip, so as you can see we've ground a little bit down to make it the correct thickness. The XC clip fits in, the rod will fit in, spread it, and it'll be a done deal. As well, these, they work and they don't actually pull the lever until a certain way, and we weren't getting enough throw to pull the rod enough to unlatch the door catch. So I've actually had to pin them together, so when it actually pulls, it pulls both straight from the beginning. And have a look on the car with one mounted with a rod and everything. And we have a working prototype.
Nice. So the trimmer's got us to a point where he's marked out where he needs the door handle mounted. So what's going to happen is we're going to cut that hole out, because this will mount to the door trim. So when it goes on, we're running that cable down through here, and we think we can pick up the original plastic clip from the XC there. So XC handles here and XAB is up here. So we've just gone in between now and used the same formula. So we're expecting a good result out of that. So well done, mate. Just another one of those jobs out of the way.
Yes.
So Phil's here today drilling holes in the car and making things fit. So we're actually doing all the brake lines. So the car's ABS, so we've got to go from the master cylinder inside the car and then over, and we've got that mounted up on here. So we've got a whole lot of fittings going on, so he's working his way through that. So I want to get all that sorted before we start bogging things up and painting. So it's Saturday and I'm doing a bit of work on the old ute again. So I sort of briefly covered it last week, but because I'm not taking Boss XC to the Summernats, the ute's entered it anyhow, so I've decided to, it's been a couple of years since we've been back there, so I'd give it a bit of a tidy up. So the ute's in really good condition. It's done about 120,000 k's is about all, and I've had it about 4 years. So today I'm just changing the driver's seat over. So fortunately for me, I managed to pick up a relatively new seat. I think it was off Facebook actually, off Marketplace, and someone had it set up as a chair in their office chair on a frame, and I bought it and stuck it into storage, and I decided that mine's worn out enough now that I'd replace mine. So I've got the pair of them sitting in here, and it's probably out of a sedan, like a GDP, but the leather all is exactly the same, except as you can see, the actual padding on mine's pretty worn out, and just in general use, all the leather's just so much nicer on the new one. So I'm going to swap those over, but there's a few subtle differences. The rear panel on the back, this one here come off the one I bought, and the one on the ute, zip around the back here, is that one. So we swapped those over already, and I think we mentioned with the Boss XC build that these seats have got a bit of a habit of cracking underneath, and you can see here where this one's just got a few cracks starting to run through there, but all the springs are in good nick, but obviously just wear and tear in and out, and they always go on this edge here, as you can see there, and up here, and on this nice one here we've got leather's looking much better. So I'm going to swap these bottom plastics over now. This one's got a few marks in it, a little bit of a ding in it, and the one off the ute's in really good nick. So we'll get all the good bits off both, and then, I mean, the one that come out's probably still of some value to someone that might have a GDP that's totally worn out through here, and I know this fabric's really hard to get, so I won't ditch that. I'll offer that to someone else. Someone may be interested in that. So this is one of those interesting things when you start playing with different bits off different cars that you're not sure what they're off. These are the two, obviously, adjusters, and one grey and one black. So I'm now going to change all of those parts off of the new seat and the ute so that it matches what's on the other side. So the ute, so 2006 FPV ute is black, and whatever this FG was out of is grey. So I've been fiddling with the ute, just working towards Summernats, because if I'm going to take a car there, obviously I want it to look nice and tidy, and the ute's my daily, but I keep it really, really nice. So I'm just doing all those little things. So I scored this seat, I've done a bit about that. Just wanted to show you what it looks like now. And I've just found a few more bits. I'm going to clean up around the shifter next, and I've got a few parts for that coming on now. So looking good, and just hoping to have it all looking nice and brand new for the Nats. And what happens with the chrome is they tend to, being aluminium die cast, they start to pit from under the